I just finished teaching another amazing Fluid training class. One of the concepts we teach students is how to create and initialize the left panel, also known as side page 1. One of the students asked this really great question. Can you change the size of the panel? Well, the answer to a can you question is always yes. The real question is how? Actually, there are several ways. And in this episode, I want to provide you with some ideas. First, the side page is a page in Application Designer, just like any other page. And just like any other page, it has a style class. So let's do this. Let's set a style class. So in Application Designer, I'm going to open the page properties and on the Fluid tab, add a style class. How about JSM panel width, how about -60EM? Now, that's going to be pretty wide, but I want it to be absolutely obvious that our CSS is working. Okay, next we need a style sheet. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that style class name and then start creating my style rules for my style sheet in a style sheet that I have pre-prepped here. And what do we want? We want width 60EM. Okay, perfect. We'll close our style sheet and save. Okay, now, next thing we need to do is import the style sheet into our page or our component. This page, being a side page 1, might be used on several components. So we'll use page activate, view page people code, and we will use add style sheet, and then drag and drop our style sheet into our page people code. Okay, great. Let's save it. And hey, let's test it out. Let's see if it works. Oh, it didn't work. Okay, now there's several reasons it might fail. One of them is we may have had a typo in the style sheet name, and so the browser may not have downloaded the style sheet. Well, we did a drag and drop, so odds are we're good there. Okay, second, we may have a typo between the style rule definition and the style class used on the page. We copied and pasted that, so I think we're good there. Now, another reason is because of selector specificity. What I mean there is an Oracle-delivered style rule may be more specific than our rule. Okay, well, let's start with the simplest thing. So I'm going to inspect, and we'll look at the sources to see, did it in fact download our style sheet? What we're looking for here is the JSM panel. Perfect, there it is. Okay, there's the style rule. Let's grab the style class name, go to the elements, and we'll do a quick Control F and see if we can find it. There it is in the JavaScript, but that's not it. Okay, here it is. Here it is in the style, in the HTML. Okay, now I've selected it, so it's a selected item. Let's go over to the right hand in the CSS, the browser, and let's look at the CSS properties, look at the CSS selectors, see which ones match, which ones apply. Well, I see there's a rather large one here at the top. I see that it has a darker bold color for one of these. That would be the rule that matches. Let's look at its definition. Oh, see, there it has a width. The fact that it's not crossed out, the fact that it's at the top, yeah, that's the selector that's probably winning. And I see it is a nested composite selector, multiple class names. That really does look a lot more specific than mine. Well, let's keep going down. Let's find our rule. See how far down in the list our rule is. See all the crossed out ones? Crossed out means that they've been overridden by something else. Oh, here's our rule. Okay, now we have a couple of ways to fix this. One of them is we could go right to the end and we could use the important attribute. And you can see clearly we've made it wider. Now, using important is discouraged. Well, why? Because as you can see, it basically, it makes it impossible, difficult to override later. So it's discouraged, so let's not do that. Save that for last resort. If there is another way, let's apply it first. And there is. One way would be to make our selector more specific than Oracle's delivered selector. So looking here, I can see that Oracle, we saw that Oracle is using a nested composite class names list for its selector. We could create a class names list that is more specific. Or here's another idea. What if we go with an ID selector? Now, ID selectors are, by definition, the most specific because by definition, you only have one item with a particular ID in an HTML document. Also, ID selectors are the most efficient, performance-wise. But before you go crazy with ID selectors, they are discouraged. I mean, use them where it makes sense, but the reason they're discouraged is because they they prohibit reuse. It's only going to work on an element with an ID of, in this case, PT side. Well, let's use that, PT side. So we're only allowed one PT side per document, so we could only use this style class or this rule once. So let's do that. PT side dot. Oh, perfect. Look at that. Our rule is now more specific. Well, let's drill into our source, our modified source. Let's copy it and let's paste it back into our style sheet to update, save, and then back in app online, let's reload to confirm that in fact it did work. So here's a question. What if the sidebar is an Oracle-delivered page? In that case, adding a style class would be a customization. Could we do the same thing with event mapping? Actually, yes. I won't walk you through the mapping people code here, but I will show you the CSS. And this would be an alternate approach. I mean, we could use it on a custom or a delivered page. So here's how it works. Rather than defining our own style class, so let me go back to the page. Let's do a reset. Rather than defining our own style class, so we'll clear this out, we could just redefine the Oracle-delivered selector to make it more specific or to override the Oracle-delivered selector. Let's do this also. Let's pretend like we are resetting the code so that it would be no longer a customization if this were an Oracle-delivered page. And then let's comment out the CSS we wrote already, reload to see it reset back to the default. Okay, great. Now let's find the items, the selectors. Let's work our way back up again. Find that PT side. Okay, that was the item. And we see the Oracle-delivered selector is this item here that's in dark bold color. Let's copy that and let's mock up right here, just right in the browser. Let's mock up our own rule. Okay, so now I have a rule here, and right now it's going to show as being more specific, but it's not more specific. It's just going to be the last CSS parsed. So width 60 EM. Okay, great. It applied, but it's not more specific. If we were to perhaps apply this as a style rule, it wouldn't. Using event mapping, it may or may not win. It just depends on which style sheet parses last. So if we want to make sure ours is more specific, then we want to use that same ID selector. PT side. Perfect. Now ours, we can see it here, it's still applying. It's more specific. So let's grab this rule then, and we'll apply it here. Okay, now, of course, it's not going to do anything because I haven't injected it. So the next step would be to use event mapping. Now with event mapping, what we do, we might use component post build. Actually, I might use component pre-build or page activate, something like that. But here, let's pretend. So going back to view page people code, add styles sheet. Now, of course, I'm not doing event mapping here, right? I'm pretending that I was doing event mapping. This is what the customization would look like. Move my style sheet back in here, save and reload. Perfect. So here are two ways to resize the sidebar. Now, I have a question for you. Do you know of other ways? Are there other ways to resize the sidebar? I'm actually curious. Let me know. If you have other ideas, be sure to share them with us in the comments. At JSM Pros, we teach PeopleSoft Fluid several times per month. Be sure to check out our website to see what we're offering next. Or here's an idea. Subscribe to our LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter feeds to receive updates every time we post a course. Or do you have a team that wants to learn more? Give us a call. Let's get something on the schedule. Now, before you go, I have a question for you. Do you have a topic you'd like us to cover in a future soundbite? If so, let us know by sharing your idea at soundbites.jsmpros.com. Now, if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe for more content. And we look forward to seeing you in the next episode.